Hey, what's up guys? This is Anthony from Anthony's Customs, and for this review we are looking at the Play Arts Kai Marvel variant Iron Man figure. This is one that people are really excited about because it is the first of the Marvel variants, so it's kind of exciting to see how they're going to make these figures, the direction they're going in, if they're going to tie in with the DC variant line, things like that. And the good news is, it's a pretty good showing. It's not a perfect figure, and we'll talk about the issues it has, but for the most part, it's a really solid figure, and I really like the design. He comes with the standard Play Arts Kai display stage. Looks like that once you build it, and so that'll help you for some flight poses, at least maybe some kind of hovering poses. I've been told these aren't the most stable display bases, but I don't use them personally, so I don't know. But it does come with that, and it gives you instructions on how to put all the accessories together. And I was asked last time to show off the variant figure boxing because they have so much nice artwork. And this one is no exception. That artwork is awesome. Looks great. Absolutely love it. So very good job again on the artwork. Same thing with the Cowboy Batman, even though I didn't show that. And Darth Vader. Very, very nice. So if you guys like the artwork on the packages, you'll like this one a lot too. A lot of people are curious if they're in the same general scale, even though they're not technically to scale, as the DC figures, and the answer is yes. Iron Man stands roughly 10.5 inches tall, which makes him just about 26.5 centimeters, pretty much standard height for the variant line. If you'll notice, everything on him is metallic. It looks really, really good. I like the nice dark reds with the more kind of a muted gold, and then the blacks. And then it has lots of little battle damage scratch marks throughout the blacks and the reds. Not quite as much on the gold, but still looks really, really good. And a lot of people didn't care for the head design. I personally really like it. It has enough of the movie look that it ties in with that kind of nicely for people that like the movie design. It has more of the classic look a little bit here and there to make it look more like the classic design. And then overall, it's kind of like a Marvel Now variant more than anything because he's got the black and gold and just the red mixed in. So I'm really happy with it. The chest piece, the arc reactor in the chest is a gem, just kind of like the D-Arts Mega Man figures. It's a clear piece of plastic with some silver paint behind it. So that looks pretty cool. And the eyes are just silver, but they work so well. I mean, they look really good, and it works well for the figure. They look kind of illuminated sometimes when the light hits it. So I'm really happy about that. And otherwise, for the paint, I think my favorite thing about this is the shading they have going on in the gold, especially on the face, kind of around the eyes and the mouth area. It really accentuates the look of the face mask, so I think that looks really cool. Before we get into the articulation, let's talk about accessories. He comes with the 2 fist hands, which is pretty much standard, of course. We have the 2 relaxed hands, and this is a good time for me to show you the detail in these. We have a whole lot of nice detail, and the repulsors on the hands are silver. They don't have gems in there, but that's okay. It looks nice. So we have the fist hands, the open hands, and then we have the blasting hands with these cool blast effect, parts. And they are semi-translucent, and they are mostly painted though, but they still look really cool because they have like this pearlescent, silvery, yellow, orange shading going on. It's a really nice effect, and you get some nice poses out of it, so that's cool. So that's it for the hands. We have some foot blasts, if you want to call them that. So those just peg into the bottom of the feet, and we have the silver and whitish to the orange to the purplish coloring, and that just pegs in down here. It's a really snug fit, so be careful. You don't want to twist off that nubbin, but he's got the foot blasts on there, so you can pose him flying if you want to. We also have some back flaps for him. So these pieces right here, these just come right off. Like that, they just peg in and come right out. And then this one goes in this side. They don't close up, obviously, because they're just meant to be open. It looks like they've kind of expanded and everything like that for the flight. So it's got just the ball hinge in there, so you can move that around in some way that you would like it to be. It's going to depend on how you have them posed, of course, but you can put those in on both sides. And that's basically just for the flight poses. More than likely, that's what people are going to use them for, but it's cool that they included it. So let's take those off, just because that will happen, by the way. They'll come off on either end. Just rotate the hinge around and then pull so that you can get it out the right way, and you'll be just fine. So let's cover those back up, just because I like them better closed, personally. And so then we also have the thigh blaster thingies. So this is cool because you can't even really tell these come off, if you didn't already know it. So these come off right here, and then you can place this one on instead. And these have the thigh missiles coming out. These are a little trickier to peg in because it's kind of a complex curve, but you can spend a second to get it in. I think it works better to go in from the back first, and it still doesn't want to go in. It's a snug fit, but they will fit, I promise. I got it in the first try, the first time. Obviously it was the first time. So there, the thigh thing opens up, and then you can take the missiles off if you want to, but if you do want the missiles in, those just peg in like that, and it looks like he's firing the missiles out of his thigh, and you can do that for this side also. So it's a nice little accessory, and these are, again, semi-translucent with the missiles painted, and then kind of like the smoke stream shaded as well. So it's a very cool batch of accessories. I think they did Iron Man justice. Happy with that. So let's talk about the articulation of the figure. This is really the only part that I have a few problems with. There's some new articulation, at least new for me. I haven't seen this style in some of the pack figures, so it'll be interesting to talk about this and see what you guys think. First of all, the head itself is articulated normally. We have a double ball peg. So the head can move around really well on top of the neck. You shouldn't really have too much trouble. Sure, you can get some gapping, but anything with decent articulation will give you that, so I'm okay with that. Now the neck is different. Instead of being a double ball peg, which is my preference, this one is, hopefully you can see in there. No, you can't. Can you see back here? You can. It's a hinge. It's a ball peg that goes into the torso and then a hinge for the neck that lets it move this way. Now the ball peg that connects on the bottom half of that joint, it doesn't really allow much play this way. It's basically just a swivel. And I don't know if this is a normal thing or not, but my neck is crooked. It's going off at a slight angle to his right or to the left of the screen. So that bugs me a little bit. Functionally, it works okay. You can lean the head forward, you can lean it back. I do wish it was made to hide that gap a little bit better, but it's not horrible, so that's okay. So I'm assuming they did that so you can put them in a better flight pose. It still doesn't work all that well. The way the head has to go back and the neck looks fat, it's just not great. So I think a double ball peg on both parts of the neck, I think that would have been better. It's not bad. I just prefer it the other way. You can still get all your standard posing done looking off to the side or whatever you want, so that's okay. For the shoulders, we have a new design. We have a hinge inside the torso. This is all hollow, by the way. This is all soft plastic, and all the guts in there are what's controlling everything. You can kind of see through into there a little bit. So we have a hinge that controls the arm like this, and then on top of that hinge we have our standard ball hinge. So instead of just having that ball hinge that we've seen on some of the other figures where it created that big gap, we have that hinge inside to allow us to get the range of motion without having that big gap. So if you want to tuck the arm in and keep it looking nice and clean, you can do that. It works really well. If you want to bring the arm out, you can drop that inside hinge and then raise this one, and now you can bring the arm all the way out, and it still looks, for the most part, very clean. So that's, I think, a good design. And then of course the ball hinge rotates around to get the arms going however you want them to. And this is soft enough plastic that you can bring the arm at least around a little bit more than maybe you would otherwise be able to. So that's fine by me. We get our bicep swivel, standard ball hinge for the elbow. It'll rotate on both ends, and then the same thing for the wrist. Mine, unfortunately, the internal hinge is really loose on it. It doesn't always want to hold the arm out. Unless I tuck it in all the way, then it works. But you see that? That's problematic. Hopefully that's not a common thing, and I can get it replaced and fixed. But if it is a common thing, be aware that his right shoulder internal hinge is a little bit loose. Now, similarly, this internal joint for the torso is new also. We have a ball peg that goes into the lower torso, but a hinge that allows the upper torso to move. Now, personally, again, I prefer the double ball peg because that upper hinge, it does allow him to bend his back farther back, but you can see right inside because of it, so that's not very good. That's a big opening. And then it doesn't really allow him to lean forward very much at all. There's almost no forward movement. It just kind of slides forward a little bit. So I think a double ball peg probably would have been more effective. You do get to get inside a little bit more because of this new joint. There's a lot more gapping. So it's not bad. It works well enough. I personally just prefer the double ball peg, the classic design, because otherwise I'm mostly just going to leave it tucked in like that and then just use that bottom ball peg to rotate it around, which is a perfectly fine option. It's just the double ball peg, I think, is a little more practical and probably less expensive for them. For the lower torso, we have our standard single ball peg that goes up into the lower torso, and then it branches off for each of the hips. But this guy's design is a little different in that they kind of hollowed out the hip area but made it filled in at the same time. I don't know. If you're familiar with packs, you know what I mean. Just know that normally that's just completely hollow rather than having that internal kind of cavity. So the ball hinge or ball peg is in there, and then that's filled in so that it still looks good, but you still get the range of motion out of the hips. You can really get his hips up there far. Really good for posing. And they gave him butt cheeks connected to his legs to fill in the gaps. So I mean, it's not absolutely perfect, but it does fill in the gaps for the most part. So I do like that. Going out to the side, it's not great, but it's definitely not bad. So again, I'm okay with that. The one thing where this is limited, the rotation in the thigh, because of that butt cheek that's tucked in under there, it limits the thigh rotation pretty significantly, but it's not horrible. Otherwise, the only real gripe I have about this whole region is the floating crotch piece is a little bit too big. I know that sounds kind of funny, but maybe, I don't know, it's like his waist size is like maybe 3 sizes too big. If that was smaller, I think it would hide the joint better and not be as bunched up in a lot of the poses. But once you get him posed, you can kind of hide that, so it's not a problem. It's just, I don't know, every once in a while we get a play arts figure with a really big floating crotch piece, and it doesn't always work well. It doesn't look bad, but it could be better, that's all. As for the knees, they did a really good job with the knees. They're definitely some of the best Play Arts Kai knees. They don't look super bulky at all, so I'm really happy about that. Good range of motion. And then for the ankle and the foot, because the foot's a solid piece, we just have our standard ball hinge. You get pretty decent range. You can't go all the way forward, but you can go forward enough, and then you can also work in the ankle rocker a little bit, so you can get them in some poses. So by and large, I'm really happy with this figure, guys. Stick around for some photos at the end so you can see him in action, because he looks even better once he's actually posed. You know, most figures that have a lot of articulation don't look good just standing there. So once you get him posed, it really stands out as a nice figure. So stick around for that. I do recommend him, especially if you're an Iron Man fan or a Marvel fan and you're thinking about getting into the Play Arts figures. Be aware of those issues I pointed out, but otherwise, I think you guys are going to enjoy him. I think he looks really good, and I think you probably will too. He should be in stock at Big Bad Toy Store very soon. If you haven't already pre-ordered him, click that link in the description below, and you can pre-order yourself one, because I have a feeling these Marvel figures are going to be pretty popular because they're pretty darn good so far. So there it is, guys. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can see my upcoming figure reviews, custom figures, and other good stuff. And in the meantime, keep collecting.